Welcome to Dead Folks Tales, a New Orleans-centric podcast exploring Southern Gothic stories, history, and hauntings, with your host, paranormal and fantasy author, Nola Nash. Find out more at nolanash.com. Now, let's talk about dead people.
And oh my goodness, are we going to talk about some dead people today? I'm so excited to once again welcome to the show Laura Kemp, who is a great friend of mine and who had such a great story for us the last time she was on Dead Folks Tales that we decided to do a special event for her to actually go down to the cemetery and check it out. She's going to tell you guys the story. We have her daughter, Anna, who's here with us running the widescreen cam there for us. That's fantastic. Thank you, Anna. Thank you for the thumbs up. And we also have David from New Orleans Ghost Hunters, who is here offering expertise, advice, and just, I don't know, maybe some color commentary, David. Just jump in on anything you want to contribute. But thank you guys so much for joining us, and feel free to leave your comments in the comments section. We will continue to watch those and try to address anything that we can as we go. So for the next, I guess about 20-25 minutes, we're going to be hanging out with Laura and Anna and David. And Laura, we are at Anderson Cemetery. And who?
Ashton, Anna's boyfriend's here too.
Ashton.
He's providing the muscle in case anybody.
Awesome. Well, we've got Laura's family helping out down here. So, Laura, we are at Anderson Cemetery. Is that correct?
Yes, we're at Anderson Cemetery in Decatur, Michigan. Kind of closer to Marcellus than Decatur. And this is the cemetery where Esther and Charles Morris are buried. And they were murdered actually 142 years ago today. Just on the other side of this tree line is where their house stood. There's a field. It's pitch black, but that's where their house stood.
Let's see. I have a picture of the house. So hang on. Let's give people a visual here. So this was their house as it stood many, many years ago. And that house, am I correct, Laura, that it stood until the 1960s?
The 1960s, yes. It stood until they believe an arsonist burned it down.
Wow.
But it used to be kind of a local attraction for the kids. You know, the kids would come and they would climb that windmill and they would sneak into the murder house. I heard from a man in the area that they even took school trips to this place, which was kind of odd. And there's a legend that big tree, I don't know, that in the front, it's a locust tree, that the bullets that, as I tell you the story, that killed Mrs. Morris went through the dining room window and lodged in that tree. That was the legend. And the man who showed me where this house was actually cut that tree down when the house burned. I don't know if you can even see me. I wish I had a little more light.
We can see you a little bit.
He said,
you put your flashlight under your chin like they do when they're telling ghost stories at camp.
Maybe that's what Ashton could do. Turn the flashlight on his phone and shine a little light on me.
There you go. Put him to work.
When he cut down that tree, he said he did see what appeared to be bullet holes in that. Oh, there I am. There. Can you see me a little bit now?
Yeah.
I'm my whole crew here. What appeared to be bullet holes in that tree. So, yes.
That's pretty awesome. Now, the story is very sad. I mean, it's sad the more you hear about it. So I can see why there would be legends that would spring up about, the haunting of the cemetery where they're buried, just simply from the horrible way that they died, and just the sad, especially Esther, because they found out something about Esther after she died that made it even more sad.
They did.
Go ahead and tell them about that.
Well, sorry, there are cars going by, and we're always wondering if they're going to stop and say hello to us. But
they're welcome on the show.
So they did discover later on that Esther was pregnant at the time of her death. And then even kind of on a sadder note, her and her husband had, and we just saw the writing on the side of the tombstone, had a child in March of the year before. And the child, Frankie was his name, died in September. So he was only 6 months old. They lost a 6-month-old. Then she became pregnant again a little bit later. And then she was murdered while she was pregnant.
That's so sad.
Awful. But what happened, I can tell you a little bit about the murder itself. They went to bed, Mr. and Mrs. Morris, about 9 o'clock at night. There was a hired girl sleeping upstairs, right directly above their bedroom. And at about 9 o'clock at night, there was a knock on the door. Mr. Morris went to answer the door and was shot right where he stood. And he had a revolver that he usually carried with him. And for some reason, he left it on the bedside table when he went to answer the door. So I think is when they found it, it was on the floor, meaning that they think she saw who had killed her husband and then dropped the gun because she was afraid. The murderer came into the house, chased her through the house, and was firing at her. One of these bullets hit the tree that we were talking about earlier out through the dining room window, hit her in her left arm and broke it. And then they cornered her in a back closet and then shot her twice and killed her. And the hired girl, who said she was a light sleeper and had the window open, I think, even that night, never heard a thing. Supposedly,
something
until the next morning
about
when
that
she came downstairs. Yeah,
it doesn't sit right with
Until
me.
she
Does
came
it sit right with
downstairs.
you?
No, because I always imagine that their suspicion fell on a hired man that had been fired a few months before for like drunkenness. And my theory was always that her and this hired man were kind of in cahoots. Although no jewelry was stolen, no money was taken, I almost feel like it was a personal, because then the killer, they think he brought his own saddle and his own bridle and took off on Charles's fastest horse. So he knew exactly which horse to go for. And took off for South Bend, Indiana, which is 30 miles away. And somebody saw him riding in the dark or saw the murderer, but said they were wearing like a mask and a funny hat. And he kind of just rode away into oblivion. Nobody, or she, could have been a female killer. We were just talking about that. Nobody ever, there was no sign of the murderer ever again, though there was suspicion fell on this hired man. And then when they started looking at him, then he pointed the finger at somebody else, and that actually arrested this other person. And a lynch mob came and took him out of the jail, took him into the woods right where we're standing, and tortured him for like hours and hours and hours. And I think they tried to like string him up because he had like neck damage for the rest of it. He did get away and he lived, but he had damage to his like body for the rest of his life. It's really and the rest of his life, he swore he had nothing to do with this murder. And meanwhile, the hired girl and this handyman kind of just vanished. Like, where did they go? They just kind of vanished. And I'm like, what do you mean they vanished?
How did they not investigate them a little further? That's the one part of it that I've, as an author, I'm going, there's a plot hole.
Major plot hole. You're right. And the Pinkerton agency even came in and kind of, tried to investigate. So, yeah, there are cars going by. I'm always wondering if they're wondering what we're doing. Maybe they know. It's a little rednecky out here is all I'll say.
So, David, you've heard this story. What do you think about, I mean, does this sound like something that might result in activity? Is that the type of story that lends itself to, some sort of aftermath?
Yeah, it's a good possibility. Anything is possible, It's hard to judge anything just off of a story.
Have you ever seen things like, have you ever been called out to investigate things like, in this case, the tombstones are supposed to glow on this particular night? Is that something that you would be called out to investigate, or is this something, or do you tend to deal more with buildings and other types of sites?
We investigate everything. We just investigate, anomalous activity. Now, you're from New Orleans, and you know about Metairie Cemetery.
Oh, yes.
And there's actually the grave of, or the tomb of Josie Arlington, which is believed to glow. Her head is believed to glow red. And I was just out there a couple of months ago taking a look at it. And I want to go out there and investigate it. One of the theories why it glows red, we kind of debunked that, but there might be another logical explanation.
If you find out anything, Josie Arlington and her tomb, Josie Arlington is just such an interesting story on her own. Just her life was interesting. And then following up with her death and the legend of her tombstone. I would love if you go out and investigate that for you to come back on the show and tell me what you find out.
Yeah, I've been actually wanting to I've been wanting to investigate it for a while now. Ever since I read years ago that supposedly her head glows red or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I've been to Metairie Cemetery. I know where the tomb is at. I don't believe she's buried there anymore. I believe they sold the tomb.
They did.
And now somebody else is there. But one of the theories is that it's from the traffic signal at the corner. Well, I can tell you there's no line of sight to that traffic light. So you can rule out the traffic lights. But there is another plausible explanation that we think. So we're going to go out there one night and check it out. And in fact, not at nighttime. You don't lie at nighttime. It's in the daytime. In fact, I was looking at some drones because I want to do some aerial footage using a drone. So that's kind of where we're going with it. We just want to kind of get a different look at it from a different angle.
That would be interesting too. Now, would they let you fly the drone over the cemetery at night? I know they lock the gates. Would they let you in with the drone?
Well, you can't go to the cemetery at night. They lock the gates, but we don't go places where when it's closed. We always go. We're very lawful. We don't trespass. So if we go, it's going to be in the daytime when it's open to the public, and that's when we do our investigation. Because the last we want to do is get in trouble because it's going to really, tarnish our reputation. So we always do things legally. We never trespass. We never go any place that we're not invited. So that's my viewpoint on that.
I like it.
We
so
might
Laura,
be in trouble right now that as we're here in the dark.
Well, you're there in the dark, but I mean, Metairie Cemetery is literally fenced in and locked, padlock, chained, and all of that. So is it open where you are, Laura?
You just walk in. I'm sorry, what?
In? Can you just walk into where you are? There's no fence or anything?
Yep. There's a gate, but you just walk around it. There's nothing that surrounds the cemetery. So.
It's like a gate with no fence.
It's a gate that only goes so far, and then you just walk around the side of it. Yeah. So because the front is always locked, I think, or at least the appearance of it. But yeah, you just walk around it, and there's a path.
They're not real concerned about security there, then.
No, and I've heard other people have come out here to see if this myth is true or not. So, but I certainly
Go ahead.
We're the only ones out here. But one of my readers on Kemp Camp said that she came out here with some friends too on the 28th of September and, didn't see anything, but they had done the same thing that we did a few years ago. So I had asked her ahead of time, are there usually people out there? And she said, no. She was.
That was my question for
you.
I
don't know if that's good or bad because it's a little spookier.
Well, I'm glad you've got the kids with you. Your teenagers are with you, which is great. So safety first there. We always want to be safe doing any kind of. Ninja that's true. We've got
brought, right?
That's right. So I'm gonna put Anna full screen here for just a second on her camera because I want to kind of let everybody really get to see the tombstones. We had them down in the corner, but I want you to be able to really see. And they are buried there together, and it's a single tombstone with the two pillars. Is that correct?
Yeah,
for both of them.
Single. Is there any way you can get any closer into that? So you can. I wonder if I can turn mine on too. Yes, it's a single. They're both buried there along with their 6-month-old child is also here. And then, of course, the child that she was carrying. So 4 people here. And people leave things. It looks like somebody left some flowers. These are sunflowers.
Oh, look how
cute. And they've withered. I left a little something.
Oh, what did you bring them?
Can you show me, Anna? My yellow leaf magnet.
Oh, your magnet.
I feel a real special connection to Esther for some reason, just because her story is so sad and justice was never really served. So I feel a strong connection to her, and I wanted to bring her something. And
I think that is so personal too. I mean, for those of you who don't know, Laura's first book is Evening in the Yellow Wood, and the yellow leaves on the cover, and the yellow leaves are kind of her thing that goes with her symbol for that book series. So that is a really special thing for you to have left, is the yellow leaf magnet there for them. And David knows this because from South Louisiana, we know about, lots of folks will leave things at grave sites. I mean, that's something that is fairly commonly done, especially, if you take the tour of St. Louis Cemetery behind the French Quarter. lots of things are left on the grave. So that's a really, it's a
They have
special
quarters
practice.
here too, and pine cones. I don't know if Anna can get a picture of what else has been left here. Some coins.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of
coins is quite
common, isn't
common.
it, to leave coins? Yeah, and some
Why do
pine
you
cones.
think
It's
they
like
leave coins, David? Is there something, do you know the story behind the coins? Is that, I mean, I know the whole thing back in ancient Rome and all that was to pay to pay passage across the river Styx, but is that something, is there a more modern interpretation of coins?
That's basically what I heard, so you know just as much about it as I do.
Okay, look at me go. I know some stuff.
You do. Plethora of knowledge.
When it comes to cemeteries, they're kind of my thing. they're my jam. I love cemeteries.
I don't even feel scared out here. I've always felt kind of peaceful in cemeteries. So
I do too. I've always thought that too.
I enjoy being in them. Yeah. I've never really, like, when people say that we're going to go to a cemetery at night, I'm kind of like, ooh, okay.
Sounds
scare
good
me
to
like
me.
other places, but yeah, I know. I'm in.
I love the stories that cemeteries tell, and this particular cemetery here is no different. I mean, it has such a story. Even this one tomb itself has got such a special story for the town, and a sad one at that. But there are stories on every headstone if you really take the time to.
We were
look.
looking around, before
the connections of
some
the
of the others.
Yeah, I love the stories that they tell, and this is one. If you didn't know, I mean, there's not a lot of information about this particular tombstone. If you didn't know who the people were who were buried there, you wouldn't you would feel sad about the baby on the other side.
Rubbed, yeah. You can't read the writing anymore. It's completely rubbed off. So, you would have no idea what had happened here unless you researched it and knew the local history. So I keep wondering, how am I showing up in that? But it's Anna's.
You are showing it, but we could see you for a second there. Yeah, we can see you.
Yeah, but you can't really read anything here. But it's underneath a big, beautiful pine tree. It's a beautiful spot here in the cemetery.
At least they have that, right? I mean, we want them to have a beautiful resting place if they had such a traumatic end. We want them to have a beautiful place. Look at Anna go with the camera work, y'all. She's doing a great job. Shout out to Anna.
Want to be movie? What do you guys do? Produce movies?
Is that a frog? Is that a frog, Anna?
Oh, look.
It's a little green frog. Oh, look. Well, the headstones may not glow necessarily, but we've got company. And look, a ladybug.
A green glow from a frog.
Maybe that's what
Maybe if we turned all the lights off, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe we need to
see for a moment.
We need to see
we can
if
see
they
for
will.
A moment.
Yeah, let's
go
turn the lights off for a second and see what happens.
And see what happens.
I'm gonna put Anna full screen here so we can see if anything happens. Now I've got lots of lights on me from the setup here, and you guys can tell better. What do you think? Anything at all?
Not from what I can see.
I wonder if you have to wait until 9 o'clock when they actually. What time was it that it was 9 or 9:30 that they answered the door?
9 and 9:30. They say the knock came at 9 o'clock. That's what they
speculate. Came at 9 o'clock. It's so spooky out there.
It is.
I can see. I was looking there. There was a little dot, but I think I might be seeing a reflection of something.
It is a glowing tombstone, but I think it's something that family members put on it. It's like a glow stick.
Oh, a glow stick on it. Oh, look at that one. Yep.
Yeah, it's going green and then it's going red. But it's electric.
It's an electric. An electric glowing tombstone. Okay, so that one doesn't count.
That one doesn't.
Well, that's kind of interesting because there's a local cemetery that supposedly there was lights that glow in a cemetery that they couldn't explain. And we went out there and investigated, and we found out what it was. It was a tombstone that had an LED light built into it.
Oh,
with a solar panel, and it would glow at night. So that's what was causing the glowing. We debunked that, But yeah, they do have tombstones that glow.
I wonder if maybe a tombstone like that, if the family member who was buried there was maybe afraid of the dark, then that would be kind of a neat thing to do for that family member so that they weren't spending an eternity in the dark.
Yeah, I wonder.
I don't know. My late husband's mother was buried in a mausoleum because she was afraid of bugs, and she didn't want to be put in the ground with the bugs. And so her family buried, she died very young. She was in her 20s when she died, but she was afraid of bugs. And so they buried her in the mausoleum kind of like way up high. So she was nowhere near the bugs.
Nowhere near bugs.
So I think about, that was, I guess her story is what made me think about maybe that's why the LEDs in the lights in the tombstones, maybe they were afraid of the dark, and that was what the family did. What an interesting thing. I've never seen a tombstone with lights in it before.
Yeah, neither did we.
That's pretty fascinating.
And at the end, the story behind it was about 5 minutes before we noticed it, a pickup truck pulled up in the parking lot and it pulled off. And then so the cemetery was kind of hilly, and we're walking around, and it was in the corner of the cemetery, and we started seeing like these red and blue lights. And we thought maybe whoever was in the pickup truck thought we were doing drug deals or something back there. And he might have had us like in laser scopes with their rifles or whatever that were going to shoot us and rob us or whatever. And we really panicked, and that's when we discovered it was coming from the tombstone. But it was just kind of like this perfect storm where we're like, oh no, somebody's got their rifle sights on, laser sights on us, until we kind of snuck out of there and found out it was the actual tombstone that was glowing.
That's crazy. I mean, wow, what a moment. They're thinking that this could be it. I'm gonna die on an investigation in a cemetery.
Yeah, because they pulled up, and I'm
getting a little worried out here too. How dark it is.
Because they pulled up, and I'm sure they saw our cars. Then they probably wondered what these people are doing back there. They must be doing drugs or something. And then we see these lights, and we're like, "Oh no, they're going to try to rob us, or we don't know what's going on." Look, they got us in their laser sights or whatever. And we kind of, like I said, we got out of there, and then we kind of noticed in the corner cemetery where it was coming from was this tombstone that was glowing. So evidently it was a tombstone. But an experience like that can make you realize how dangerous being in a cemetery at night. It can be, pretty dangerous.
Yikes!
Good thing you got your kids. You got your kids with you, Laura. I feel like, and you're on live in front of a lot of people, so surely they won't do anything to you.
That's right, and
you're at least with an audience.
Exactly, but I do probably am going to sign off pretty soon because there's not much else to see, and cars do keep going by. But I at least wanted to, get out here on the night and see if there was any truth.
Yes, let's see. Hang on, let me put the tombstone back up there one last time before you guys sign out. There we go. Anna and her fabulous camera work. Thank you so much, kiddo.
And Ashton and his lighting.
The thumbs up.
They're on their way. This is their first movie, right?
There you go. Your first movie. There it is. Well, Laura and crew, I'm going to let you guys get safely back to your car. So, make sure you have those lights going.
If you don't hear from me tomorrow, you'll know.
We know at least where to look, right?
Yeah, Anderson Cemetery, Lawrence Road in Decatur.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, we're going to let you guys go. Thank you so much for doing that and for taking us out there. Maybe they glow a little later, but at least we know this story and what an interesting story that is, and how cool to see that people are leaving tokens on the tomb too. So at least they're not forgotten.
I may move my leaf up beside.
There you go.
And everything else. And now I've left my thing. And you know what? I'm kind of glad there's nothing here because maybe that means they're resting in peace. And
maybe so.
Certainly deserve that.
They do.
To them.
They absolutely deserve to rest in peace. And they've got their little frog buddy keeping them company and their ladybugs.
Yep. Who doesn't want a frog to keep him company?
Who doesn't want a frog buddy? He was tiny. He was cute. He can stay. Ladybug. Well, you guys are fabulous, Kemp family. So thank you so much for that. And guys, stick around a little bit longer for Dead Folks Tales. David and I are going to be back with our second part here in just a few minutes. We're going to pop back on and we're going to talk Ghost Hunts with David from New Orleans Ghost
Have
Hunters here in just a second. All right, so we will see you guys soon. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time in just a few minutes, actually. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Dead Folks Tales is a copywritten podcast of Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. Special thanks to producer Roman Suritin and executive producer Pam Stack. Join us next week for another episode of Dead Folks Tales.